Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren, and I'm joined today by Adam Roberts and Emily Courtwright. Both engineers by profession, they transitioned from their corporate careers to real estate in 2013, initially focusing on single family properties. They have since diversified their portfolio through multifamily syndications and by venturing into mortgage notes. They aim to inspire a wealth building mindset through their roles as mentors and educators. Adam serves as a coach for a prominent multifamily education program, while Emily educates on wealth building strategies at Keller Williams offices nationwide. They live in Fort Worth, Texas, and they balance their professional pursuits with travel, healthy lifestyle, live music, and family time with their 3-year-old daughter. Thanks for joining me, Adam and Emily.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. We're honored to be here and invited.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I'm excited. And our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. So today we're going to talk about net worth. And let's just start with what net worth is. Why don't we?
Well, when I think of net worth, I think of what I own versus what I owe. So it's, hey, what are my assets? And then stack those all up. And then I look at all my liabilities, which is, money or things that I owe to people. And at the end of the day, what's left over is what my net worth is, what I'm worth or what we are worth.
What does it matter? Because my net worth is not my self-worth. So what does net worth matter?
So net worth matters because it's basically a gauge. It's a way to measure your wealth. But like you said, wealth is holistic. We can have spiritual wealth. We can have personal, emotional wealth, but we can also have financial wealth. And net worth is really the way that we track our financial wealth when we look at that big picture. And it's really important to know that number, and being on the same page with your partner is an even more important part of that, because if one partner knows the numbers and understands money and how to use that money and how to invest it, but the other partner doesn't, we usually find that there's a little bit of a disconnect. And so I think one of the most basic steps is getting on the same page with your partner, even if one doesn't care as much. I think it's still really important that they know what the collective net worth is of that couple.
That's a good point. So your net worth equals the value of your assets minus your debts. Can you give me some examples of what those assets and what those debts might be?
Yeah. So assets might be savings account, money that's in your bank account today, whether it be a savings or a checking account. If you buy stocks and bonds and paper assets, it could be the money trading inside your brokerage portfolio. If you own a collector car that has value, it could be the value of that vehicle. I happen to have musical instruments in this room. They tend to maintain their value if they're cared for. So I consider that part of my net worth, right? If I had to turn around and sell this keyboard right here, I could do it today and I could exchange that for a value. So really anything that carries value, monetary value, can really be considered an asset on your net worth balance sheet.
What about your primary home? There's a very famous author that says it's not an asset. That's why I have to ask you.
Yeah. Well, I personally I put it on my balance sheet as an asset. But here's the deal. Your primary home tends to cost money, right? And that very famous person that you mentioned, I think that's the direction they go, is it's like, hey, okay, you can put it on your balance sheet as an asset, but recognize that in the pursuit of owning that asset, you're actually spending quite a bit of money to maintain it, or to have a mortgage on it, or things of that nature. So yeah, it's that you could really debate that for a long time.
But yeah, we do put our personal home on our balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to. By definition, it is an asset. You have liability on it if you have the mortgage, right? So that net difference is what contributes to your net worth. And beyond that, if your home goes up in value, maybe we see this with, I'll just use like San Francisco as an example. If your home goes up in value a ton and you want to downsize and move to Florida and buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, you sell your house for $2 million, you buy that house for $750, voila, you have money to live off of. So if you've been keeping that off of your net worth, off of your balance sheet, you're like for 20 years, I don't even know, like that would make no sense to me.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, back when interest rates were a little bit more palatable, a lot of people didn't realize, hey, I've got a lot of equity in my home. I should maybe do something with that. And to your point, Lauren, if you're not tracking that, if you don't know that, then you might not make savvy financial moves with the equity in your home. So.
I'm glad you mentioned the musical instruments too, because I took a class in personal financial planning at Boston University, like during COVID. Well, I got a graduate certificate, so I took 7 classes, but you know, we talked in there about your personal statement of net worth, and there's 3 sections to it. One is your investments, right? One is your cash equivalents, and then one is your personal use assets. That's a section. Like it is widely recognized that you have personal use assets on there, which I would count maybe like jewelry in that, furniture, your musical instruments. I don't know where I would put the collectible car that you mentioned. I don't know if that would be investment or personal use. Um, probably in personal use, right? That's probably where your collections go. But all of that is supposed to go on there because theoretically, if the ish hit the fan, you could sell some things and use that for other things, needs, wants, investments, and things like that.
Yeah. And I think to your point, if you're smart about that, right? If you do consider your personal assets to go on your balance sheet and your personal use items, then I think you're smarter about buying things that hold their value, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe I will spend a little bit more money for this musical instrument because I know that, if to your point, if I needed to, I could get a better value for it in 5 years than if I just bought this piece of junk that's going to depreciate in like 30 days. So.
Yep, that makes sense. So net worth, obviously, it's a little bit like a financial scorecard if you are tracking it over time. Um, how often do you guys think you should touch base with your net worth and track it and calculate it?
We personally track our net worth every single month. And one of the reasons we do that is because it also allows us to track our income and our expenses. And so we are looking monthly at what did we make? What did we spend? Was there a profit? So we do what's called our profit and loss statement or our income and expenses statement. And then we also do our balance sheet, which is the fancy term for where your assets and your liabilities come together on a piece of paper and show your net worth at the bottom. So we do it the first week of the month. So this week we're looking back. It's the first week of June. We're looking back to May and we're saying, what did we make in May? What did we spend in May? And what do all of our assets and liabilities look like as of this point in time? And that's a really holistic picture of your personal financials. So monthly, I think, is the best, just because you can get a really good idea of the spending and the income and adjust it if you need to as the year goes on.
Have you had any aha moments recently while going through that exercise?
Yes, actually. I mean, in business, we are very heavily invested in multifamily real estate, which right now, due to interest rates and property taxes and all the other sob stories, not cash flowing like it used to, right? So
Yep.
to Emily's point, every month we kind of look at that and say, oh, wow. So for us, probably about this time last year is when we said to ourselves, and it was through these monthly reviews, we said, oh, wow, like if we don't figure something out here, then we're going to be spending a lot more than we're making. And yes, we do have some buffer, we have some cash reserves, but no one can time the market with real estate and interest rates and all that. So we actually made a huge pivot in our investing criteria and started investing in totally different investment vehicles that were cash flow heavy, because we sat there and said, oh gosh, if this continues, then we're going to bleed off some of our cash reserves. We're going to spend a lot more than we make, and it just won't be a good thing. So that was probably the biggest aha we had in the past 12 months.
I think about also at beginning our journey, when we first got started with investing, we used our balance sheet as a roadmap to how much can we invest. With our very first flip house, our very first rental property, we had to look at our balance sheet and say, where do we have the money? Where can this come from? And it it really served as a roadmap to, okay, we can take 50,000, we've saved up 50,000 and we can use this on our flip house, or we can use this as a down payment on a rental property. And so I truly believe that it has the balance sheet and knowing our net worth has allowed us to make better financial decisions over the years because we have visibility to our personal financials.
How are you getting the values for your real estate on a monthly basis?
Various methods, access to the multiple listing service here in Dallas, Fort Worth. When we had a single family rental portfolio, every 6 months or so, we'd go in there and update values just based on comparable sales. On the commercial real estate side, it's more about interest rates, cap rates, and business revenue. So don't update that as often because it doesn't move as quickly. But I would say every year or two, we will go in there in our portfolio and update all the commercial real estate numbers just based on, again, comparable data with regards to how those properties are assessed.
But just to
Okay.
recap the answer to your question, the single families, we're doing about every 6 months. We're going in and readjusting that value. Now, every month, that loan payment should be paying down. So we are still building equity, but we're just not adjusting that asset value on a month-to-month basis.
Got it. That makes sense. And that's something that I always am a little envious of, people who are like just in stocks, because I'm like, man, they like, no. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Minute by minute. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But that can get people in trouble too, but we don't need to go down that path. So net worth, Emily, you made an excellent point there about if you know you've got equity, say over here, then you can use it over there to maybe, buy another deal or reallocate funds around and things. So net worth isn't the end all be all, right? I mean, we've got to be thinking about cash flow as well. How much appreciation do we want all of my net worth? How much growth do we want in that versus how much cash do we want it to throw off, which would be why you're also doing the income statements every month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's really a total picture, right? And at the end, I mean, another operating rhythm that we go through is it's usually every 4 to 6 months. We will look at the entire year's performance. So like, for example, June, this month, we are going to look at the first 5 months of the year and just understand, hey, have we made enough? Is there enough profit? If you think of it like a business, is there enough profit on the income statement to give us enough money on our balance sheet to go make another investment? Or did we not do a good enough job managing expenses enough, right? Too many restaurant meals, too many vacations, too many, was there too much going out the back door that now my balance sheet is hampered? I don't have enough cash or liquidity to go do another investment. So yeah, I agree. And we started from day one, every 30 days, looking at, both of these financial statements from a personal perspective. It always helps though to kind of widen the lens a bit on the big picture and say, okay, well, I've been looking at it, this close for the past, several months. Now let's look at the big picture. Did I save at least $3,000 a month to go do something with it here in 5 months? It actually is quite enlightening when you look at that data to see kind of what your personal financial performance is.
I feel like listeners may be a little stressed about this idea of tracking every month. How long does it take you guys?
Oh, in the beginning, it took a long time.
Well, in the beginning, we were using simple Excel spreadsheets, and there were a lot less. We started tracking our financials 11 years ago. And so there weren't the software apps that there were today to sum up all of the spending. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that people have is like, well, how do I know how much I spend? I've got 3 credit cards, I've got debit card, I've got, I spend cash. Well, now there are so many apps and softwares that can just pull together all of that spending for you and spit out a number that says, okay, you spent $2,500 on home, you spent $1,000 on daycare, you spent $700 on food and groceries. And so it has really compressed the amount of time that it takes to do your financials. And you can load all of your assets, the things that you own, like your homes and your cars and things like that, into software, and it will spit out asset values for you. So it will calculate your net worth for you if you want to give it all your logins and load all your information. We still take that information and put it into a simple Excel spreadsheet that has what you own at the top and what you owe at the bottom. And then it spits out the net worth. So you can go as basic as you want, just a very, very simple Excel spreadsheet, or you can have it all be automated for you in an app.
Got it. That's very helpful. I was just reminded that you guys are both engineers by trade, so you'd be really good at the detail portion of this. I'm married to an engineer, so I feel like I can say
you know
that.
it. You know the pain and suffering.
It's just different. It's just a different way of thinking.
It is.
Okay. So net worth, big deal, super important. What should I be aiming for? 1 million, 2 million, 5, 10? How do I know?
You know, this goes back to the holistic viewpoint, in my opinion. I mean, anybody can set huge goals, right? And I personally, I foster that idea, but it just depends what your lifestyle is, right? It depends what you want to be, what you want to do, right? You know, for us, I think we hang around a crowd that usually says, you know, if you can have a net worth, what was it, 20 times your annual income, then that's a pretty comfortable life. It's not, you know, for most six-figure earners, it's not like $5 billion of net worth, right? But it's also not like 30,000, right? It's kind of right in the middle. So if you make $100,000 a year and you have a 2 million net worth, I mean, you're in the top 1%. That's pretty comfortable.
And that concept comes out of a book called Buy This, Not That by Sam Dogen. And it's not like buy this car, not that car. It's a mindset book about buy into this mindset, don't buy into this mindset. And he basically suggests that, like Adam used the example, if you make $100,000 a year in income, 20 times that would be $2 million. 2 million would allow you to have enough funds to produce passive income, because the end goal is to one day not have to work and one day not have to have a job that supports your lifestyle. And so if you can have a net worth of 20x, let's just say 2 million in this example, then your assets should be able to produce enough passive income for you to continue living as if you were still making $100,000 a year.
Yep, good point. So 11 years ago, you guys started tracking your net worth. Like, why then?
Go ahead.
Well, on the personal side, we got our first joint bank account. We had been dating for a little bit, and we moved to Texas from California. We were on a work rotation, and the company we worked for divested our division. So we were more or less looking for work. I found a job out here in Texas, and then Emily just started flipping houses. That's how we got into real estate. But for us, it was, hey, wow, we're living together. We're potentially starting a business together, and you have a lot more money than I do. So let's at least look at this on some frequency to just see if, like, the decisions that we're making are good decisions. We want to have a family someday. We want to get married someday. We now own a home together. And so all these, like, really important decisions are just coming together at 1,000 miles an hour. So, you know, a couple analytical people get together, and it made sense to us to really just kind of crunch the math together and make sure that the decisions we were making were the right ones.
And Adam had actually already been tracking his income and expenses throughout college from advice from his dad. And so it was a little bit natural to say, okay, we want to start flipping homes. We want to start buying rentals. We got to build up this business from scratch. How much money do we really have? And what do we have to work with? And so at that point, we combined our financials, and we've been doing combined financials ever since.
So you guys are both analytical people, like we have said. I'm not going to harp on that anymore. But what I wanted to ask about was, let's say I think a lot of relationships This is not mine. We're also both analytical type A types, right? But some people, it's like they've got the analytical, maybe math minded person, and they've got like the creative one who's not interested in that stuff. What advice do you have for those types of relationships to get on the same page about money, finances, net worth, all of that?
For me, I think, especially, in a spousal relationship, in a marriage, I think it's cool to kind of show off, hey, here's what I've got going on, right? Even if it's not up the other person's alley, right? It's like, hey, and so if it's, let's say, the wife who is the analytical and she wants to put the budgets together and follow the spending and make sure that the financial household is in order, you know, for that individual and then for the person she's married to, I think it's cool to share information like that. Just like for the creative person, let's say the husband is a musician or he writes music or he's in a symphony or something, more is that right brained? It's
Yeah, I think so.
hey honey, here's
Unless,
what I've
unless
got.
that's been debunked. I don't know. It might
I
have
don't
been
know,
debunked.
but
I'm not sure.
yeah, here's what I've got going on, and here's kind of what I'm writing, and it's part of the mutual interest of sharing a household together, and yeah, the one person may not really understand or have the biggest excitement over how the numbers come together of how the household exists and functions. But it's like, hey, honey, I'm keeping track of this little spreadsheet here. I thought it might be interesting just to let you know that, wow, over the past 6 months, we've saved $5,000. That's, we wouldn't have known that if I weren't tracking it. And with that money, I put it uh, into a CD that makes 5% today because it's historical interest rates. And that money is going to make, $250 over the next whatever. So just, oh, wow, that's cool. Oh, interesting. We would have never known that had you not been looking at that. Wow. So,
And I'll give a little bit more doomsday answer. We've seen couples, even that are into their retirement, where one spouse was completely disconnected with financials. And then something happens to the spouse that did have all the bank accounts, knew where all the money was. And it's a stressful, like, unknown situation when the spouse is left by themselves and now they don't know where the money is, they don't know the bank accounts, they don't know the logins, they don't know where their net worth is. And to me, that is a situation that all couples should want to avoid. Even if one of the partners doesn't care as much as the other partner, it's still really critical to just have that knowledge of where the money is, what accounts is it in, where is it invested, just for protection in case something does happen to the person who does care the most and tracks it all.
And that should be happening regardless of what age you are. I mean, maybe you're not reaching life expectancy, but something can always happen along the way, right?
Absolutely.
mm-hmm.
My grandma's doing that now also. My grandfather's passed, and she is communicating all of those things now with my dad, making sure that he knows where everything is. And obviously estate planning is like a whole nother side of things, but he needs to be aware of where all of that stuff is, in case, because she's not in case she dies. I mean, she's 90, like it's gonna happen at some point, right? So, that's the thing. It is, in some ways it's inevitable. You just don't know when.
I wanted to make a comment because you had mentioned cash flow and about this, does cash flow really matter today? And I actually saw a meme recently on Facebook that stuck with me. And so this is not my quote, but I saw it and it said, cash is trash, cash flow is king. And that really resonated with me, especially in today's market of inflation and high interest rates, because cash that is literally sitting there making no interest, doing nothing, is truly losing value today. And so this is to Adam's point. We made a big pivot about a year and a half ago to make sure that we had cash flow coming in to our personal financials. And we took some idle cash that was sitting there doing nothing, making 15 cents in interest all year. And
But isn't that demoralizing when
It
you
is.
like go to do your taxes and you don't even need that form because
Yeah.
it's like
Crazy.
such an irrelevant amount.
Right. And in
Yeah.
one of my masterminds, they call it dead money.
Yeah.
And dead money And I looked at my bank account after that lesson, and I had about 20,000 in a savings account that had made 15 cents in interest. And I was like, this is dead money. And one of the simplest things people can do is put that dead money into a high yield savings account or a high yield money market account right now. Is super liquid. You can get the money out within 1 to 2 days, and you can get between 4.5 to a little over 5% interest right now. And just as something, a balance as like 20,000, taking 20,000 from savings and putting into a high yield account can make you 1,500 a year in interest. And that's free money that you wouldn't have made before. And so we're really looking at high yield savings and treasury bills. Treasury bills are at 25-year highs. They're getting 5.3 to 5.4%. And I was a little scared at first because I was like, that sounds scary. I don't know what that is. But it is actually one of the simplest, safest investments that you can do because it's backed by the US government and it's guaranteed returns, kind of like CDs, but they're as low as like 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 13 weeks. And so when we think about cash versus cash flow, I truly believe that today cash flow is more important because dead cash that is sitting there is actually losing value today.
What are your thoughts on focusing on net worth when you're younger and then transitioning to worrying about cash flow when you're older and reaching retirement and maybe reallocating some of your investments?
That's a really good concept. I think the sooner you can start the financial review discussion, and even if it's not monthly, right? Even if it's like 2, 3, 4 times a year, at a young age, just looking at what you spend, what you keep, what you save, and to your point, how that turns into your net worth over time, that is so critical, because it sets you up for having a nest egg sooner than you need to worry about it. I mean, Lauren, you made the point earlier that, hey, there's a lot of folks in retirement, reaching retirement, that have absolutely nothing. I mean, they have to keep working. I mean, I mean, how many times have you walked into Walmart and the greeter, the friendly greeter, should be retired? I mean, the people working, they should be retired. They're 70 plus years old. And so the earlier you can start tracking, your net worth and your assets and that type of performance, even if it's like twice a year, to just take a little litmus test. I mean, those simple tasks will pay huge dividends in like 30, 40 years. Where, to your point, if you've done that homework, if you've really focused on that, then you can transition. I mean, honestly, if you just do the simple stuff that Emily was talking about, you could take, with compounding interest, you could take like $10,000 and turn it into like 5 million in a lifetime,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's not that hard. And so let's say you do that. You take $10,000 and compound it 6% over 40 years. I mean, you're going to have, I don't have a calculator with me. It's going to be like $3+ million. So then you can say, oh, wow, that's a lot more money than most people have. So I'm going to take that 3 million and either I'm going to have someone else manage it, so I don't even have to worry, someone I trust, or I'm going to diversify into these set of investments so that the 3 million generates $150,000 a year of cash flow that just comes in like clockwork. And that's probably like, 5 times more than you'll make, just working, somewhere because you have to. So
Yeah.
simple steps. Yes, I love that. Net worth early, focus on the nest egg, even when you're a teenager or in your 20s.
Yeah.
And then as time goes on and you're really building that up, you can transition to, well, how can I make this money work for me?
And I'll give another example just from our personal experiences. When we started investing in real estate in our late 20s, early 30s, it was very much buy and sell. Let's get the gains. Let's build our net worth as quick as we can. Flipping homes. We would keep rentals for just a couple years, let them appreciate and sell them off and reinvest that money. And I think that was a great way to build up our net worth very quickly. Now we're starting to kind of hit the next stage where we said, okay, we went through that phase. We did the hard work. We grew our net worth. Now we're like, how do we get this money to cash flow? And how do we get that cash flow to be sustainable for the long term? And so you do go through different phases based on your age. If you start early, I think putting in the sweat equity and the time and the effort to build up that cash flow is built up, then you have unlimited number of possibilities.
That's a good point. And starting young as you can, as young as you are, right? Can't be any younger. Just starting. So I think, like you said, Adam, I don't think you need to be like, all right, I'm going to track my net worth today, and then I'm going to do it every month from then on. You can do that, but really like do it once, right? Move some money from your checking or checking savings, I guess, that's getting like 0.1% and move it into one that's getting 5. These little things. And then I feel like you get more comfortable thinking about money, maybe even talking about it with your spouse, and you start to like get some momentum because you're taking some actions and doing some things. And then I think more will follow after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the terms that's used in one of our masterminds that I really like is called a monthly money date. And so pretend it's a date between you and your partner, right? Get that glass of wine. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about fun stuff. Like I think you got to make it fun. You got to gamify it. Like if one spouse isn't really into it, find a way to gamify it because that's how you're going to get engagement and excitement. And so we hold our monthly money date very sacred because it's part of our it's the financial wealth part of our wheel with spokes on it, and it's just as important as your spiritual wealth and your emotional wealth and all the other types of wealth.
If you start doing this now, you won't look back in 10 years and wish you started doing this now. I think too many people, they work their whole lives and maybe they save a little bit, but they're not tracking anything. They're not planning anything. They get to 60 years old and they're like, all right, I want to retire in 5 years. And then maybe they start trying to do some planning. Really, the earlier you start, the better it is. And I think the more confident you'll feel when you do retire. I think some people, they're probably like, I hope this is okay. And then they leave their job versus if you have been planning and you have the financial plan and you have these good retirement funds and you know what your number is and you know what you're going to spend every year and all of those things. I just think that feeling at the end must just be so much more comfortable and so much more confident than if you're just guessing.
Yeah. I think if you were to show somebody a compounding interest calculator, uh, and it doesn't, I mean, I made the comment before, hey, yeah, start in your 20s, great, but it doesn't even have to be that. I mean, you could start in your 40s,
Yeah,
right? A substantial amount of wealth can be built in as little as 10 years,
agreed.
utilizing, strategic and smart financial techniques. And none of these things are difficult, right? You know, it'd be wrong to say that there's no risk involved because there's risk involved in everything. However, we're talking about very low risk financial maneuvers, right? This isn't like, starting a startup tech company. This is very simple stuff that a lot of people have found great wealth through doing and staying consistent.
And Lauren, to your point, knowing how much you spend every year, knowing that income level can help you make the inevitable but very important decisions about, when can I quit my job? When can I retire? Knowing your expenses, knowing what you spend, it's allowed us. We looked at our financials when I was going to quit my job and leave my paycheck behind to start our business. That was knowing that we were going to at least break even on what we were bringing in and what we were spending, made that decision easier.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, you know what, we can do this. We can take this risk. And so, but it's going to happen on the other end of the scale too. When we're ready to retire and stop working, we're going to look at our income and our expenses and what do we spend and what do the passive income streams look like, and can I stop working?
Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up?
For me, I think personal financial, the part of life that personal financial sits in, and Lauren, you said this very well at the beginning, it's part of it, right? It's not the only net worth that we track, right? So I think if you have a lifestyle, if you've defined a lifestyle, or maybe it's a lifestyle that you want to work into, like, hey, I'm not there yet today, but I want to have this type of lifestyle someday in the future. Or maybe it's, I have a lifestyle that I'm very comfortable with and I want to maintain that lifestyle. From there, that is a form of net worth, right? And then you can help define what the financial part of that equation looks like, because it's very much a part of every other aspect, right? I mean, you might say, well, spiritual net worth, or, where your spirit is, where your emotions are, it's not related. Well, it is, right? To some extent, it may not be based on money, but net worth, financial net worth helps you maintain a lifestyle or build up to a retirement like y'all were just talking about. It's and just, like we said earlier, knowing what it is, taking the first step to just calculate it, just put it in the spreadsheet and then close the spreadsheet and go do something else. That's really the most powerful step, is just put it together. So,
And I think for the people out there who feel like net worth is taboo, like, oh, we shouldn't be talking, it's not something we talk about with our parents. Well, it wasn't something we talked about with our parents either. But when you find the right group of people to be around, it's amazing how you celebrate each other's net worth and your wins and your challenges, and you talk about it. And so we have found some great tribes, masterminds where net worth is not taboo. And it's so interesting because you walk up to kind of complete strangers, you strike up a new conversation and you're talking about net worth, and our parents don't even know our net worth. But now when you're in the right room, it becomes an exciting topic that everyone gets behind and encourages everyone else to build their net worth. And so I think it's really important, if growing your net worth is kind of speaks to you and you want that to be part of your journey, I think really surrounding yourself with other people that have the same mindset can just make it feel more normal and natural.
All right, why don't we start with how people can follow and get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with us, and we love when people do that, is our website, aeinvest.net.
All right, I will put that in the show notes. I'm also going to put your LinkedIn pages and Instagram as well. You guys can follow me on Twitter, X, at Adulting is Easy, Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real. This is also on YouTube at Adulting is Easy. If you like this episode, you'll also like episode 173, Passive Income with Andrew from the Personal Finance Podcast, or 167, Using Assets to Retire Early. And there's many, many other just personal finance topics, obviously. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Adam and Emily and I have made adulting a little easier for you.